Hello, and welcome to the 30-Minute Reels Employer Informational Series hosted by Marshall University's Office of Career Education. My name is Darby McLeod, and I'm a student here at Marshall. Today, I'm speaking with Orla Holmes, who is in the educational field. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Ms. McLeod, and yourself?
I am doing good, thank you. I want to start off today's discussion by allowing you to provide a short introduction of yourself.
Sure. As Ms. McLeod stated, I am Orla Holmes. I've been teaching for 13 years in the educational field. I've taught in West Virginia. I actually went to Marshall University for a little while after I went to the University of Kentucky. And then I received my degree at West Virginia State University. My husband and I moved closer, so we had to finish there. I then went back and received my master's in 2014 at Walden University in curriculum and instruction. I've received 5 Teacher of the Year awards. This last one, I actually received it from the state of Indiana, and it acknowledged me of a Teacher of the Year here in this great state that I'm teaching in. I'm currently the curriculum and instruction coach at Ignite Achievement Academy. It is a public charter school here in the state of Indiana. It works very closely, like it aligns itself specifically with the IDOE, which is the Indiana Department of Education, and we are funded through them and the Mind Trust. That's just a little bit about me.
That is absolutely incredible. How'd you get started in the field?
I'm sorry. I started in education a little later. I actually wanted to go to school to become a veterinarian. As soon as I went to the University of Kentucky's first farm and they castrated a piglet in front of me, I said, oh Lord, I can't do this. And I know this is for college students, so please understand you might switch your career path several times because you don't know yet what you really truly want to do until you get in there and you gain that experience. So I got in there, I gained it, and I was like, I love animals, but this ain't for me. So since I was also receiving an associate's in psychology, then I was like, maybe I can do child psychology, and I'll just get the degree in that.
Yeah.
It wasn't for me either. So I then went to the root of the problem. The root of the problem was, I'm so sorry, one second, my children.
Don't worry.
The root of the problem was I did not go with my first gut. My first gut was to teach. It was to educate. And the reason being is because I have a grandmother that fought through this way before civil rights era, right there when things were really not so great. Like my great grandmother was a slave, guys. So, and she was alive for me to meet until I was 12. So my grandmother, she was a part of segregation. At first, they were integrated in East St. Louis, Illinois, but then they started to segregate, and our Caucasian Americans moved to a different place. Mm-hmm. And here we have African Americans who are underprivileged now because they took all of the jobs when they left. My grandmother was a teacher at the time, and she was not receiving books. She was not receiving materials that her and her scholars needed to be successful. My grandmother, she then marched in the city of East St. Louis. She was hosed. She was mauled by dogs. She was a lot of different things, but she kept that fight. That is where this wonderful passion of mine was birthed through her, and she flows through my veins. And so I knew I had to quickly realign myself and get into teaching.
That is absolutely amazing. So did you always know you were going to be an educator?
Listen, yes, but don't nobody want to do this in real life. And the reason I say that is because it is hard. Being a teacher is one of the most challenging professions. Any profession that you work side by side with the government or any system that the government created, and you're getting funded by the government, as you all know, it lacks. You know what I mean? It lacks. And so I was very scared. I always wanted to be a teacher, but I didn't always want all the baggage that came with it. I didn't know if I was prepared to genuinely handle what I knew I would face. Just watching my grandmother, watching teachers, watching the teachers that I loved, the teachers that I didn't like. I didn't know if I was up for that challenge. So I always teetered and I always questioned, but I knew that this was it. This was my call, and I just was trying to run.
Mhm. So you said you switched your major a couple times while in college, right? What was it like to
Yes.
switch your major?
What was it like?
Yeah.
Um, I felt terrible.
Mhm.
Uh, I felt like a loser. Uh, I felt like, dang, Orlando, shoot, you can't even make up your mind and you grown, right? I'm on my own. I'm out here thinking I know something, and then I get in and I'm like, oh, that. So I did. I felt a lot of negative things about myself at first. But it was my village, my family, the people that I surrounded myself with who supported me through that. Because in all honesty, when you make a change like that, it adds on time, it adds on money that you ain't got.
Mhm.
And sometimes it don't even align with what you was already doing.
Mhm.
So you then start to question yourself. You start to question, what am I doing? And why don't I know what I'm doing? And you feel terrible because nobody tells you. You will question yourself. You're supposed to. You are a human, right? You are going through this process of life. It is a journey. It's not a let me hit that destination. Heck no, you don't really hit no destinations anyway.
Yeah.
So I had to really lean into my village to assist me in getting out of my own way, getting out of my own head, and following the path that I was being called to follow. So it was hard, but I did it. And when I did it, I started getting more A's, like I was making the dean's list. Everything just aligned when I
Mhm.
finally found what I was truly called and gifted to do.
It is obvious that you were called and gifted to do this with all the awards that you've been.
Why, thank you. Thank you.
What would you say a typical day looks like for you?
A typical day. Oh, honey. A typical day starts, of course, early.
Yeah.
And when you teach, you have to be prepared to be flexible. And people gonna say it, but they mean it. You have to be flexible. So I start off early in the morning. I get to work. I'm a happy person, so I greet everybody. I clock in, and I start with music in my class, and I start with lighting incense and burning oils and stuff because you need something that's going to calm your space
Mhm.
throughout. But a typical day for a teacher is never the same. You
Mhm.
teach, absolutely. That is not all you're doing. Because sometimes the lessons that you have created are not the lessons that are necessary because your scholars are either above what you thought you was going to teach or they need some guidance to get there. So
Mhm.
you have to be flexible. You also, as an educator, have to understand that there will be people that'll come in your class and just tell you to change it right away. Or a law will shift and you won't know that it shifted because it shifted overnight and you ain't got nothing to do with that. And you have to adhere to those things as well.
Mhm.
There's also times where students be so disruptive that you can't teach and you have to stop and form community circles so that they can build that gap and you can find out what's really going on with my babies today. Why are we not engaged? Why are we not in sync?
Mhm.
So a typical day for a teacher is a day of flexibility, is a day of understanding, and is a day of grace.
What are the different settings in which people in this occupation may work?
You can be anything in this. You can be a lawyer and you can do educational law. You can be an administrator, like a principal or an assistant principal. You get your doctorate and become a superintendent. You can be an office administrator and you can put together the things that we need within the office because we have to operate and we need operations people. You can also work in discipline and culture and building that discipline and culture if you like. You can be a teacher in the classroom. You can be an assistant teacher in the classroom. We need parent liaisons that help us build and strengthen our community with our parents. You need community liaisons because you also have community partners that are embedded in your school and that you want to keep flourishing. You can be a grant writer because we always need money because we are funded by the government and it's taken. So we need grant writers. We need police officers sometimes because we have resource officers in some of our buildings. There's a myriad of things that you can do, but those are just a few to hit the surface.
That's amazing. What does a typical work schedule look like for you each week?
A difficult one?
Or typical?
Typical. So typically, you usually start around 8, 7:30, sometimes 6:50. It just depends on what field, or if you're in pre-K to K, or if you're in K to 5, like elementary, or if you're in secondary, or if you, of course, are thinking about becoming a professor and doing an adjunct as well in college. So your day starts at a specific time. But as an educator, one thing to know and to go into this thing knowing, it doesn't end. Your day doesn't end. Once you hit the 4 o'clock and your students are gone, or whatever time your last class is, and you clock out, when you go home, you still have to critique yourself, right? You have to reflect, and then you have to look at those plans to see, did I do this right? Sometimes you also find yourself grading at home, Charlie, because you have to assess your scholars. You have to know where levels they're on, and you need to be able to handle that the very next day. So a typical day is from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. So please understand that sometimes it's all mental, right? Because you're always thinking of things of your scholars to do, but you will take your work home with you sometimes. I encourage you not to do it often.
Is this work schedule typical for this occupation, or does it differ by location?
Say it's typical, but it differs. Again, it differs in the point where I'm saying your start time. That's always different. It just depends on not only your location, but in which areas you cover as an educator. The end time, it also differs, but it's kind of similar. We usually end 3:34. Nobody really likes to linger past 4, so usually you're about over 4 o'clock. But again, the work that you have to do as far as your mirror check is what we call it, or just reflecting on yourself, that
Yeah.
sometimes happens in the privacy of your own home. So you can be wind down, you can think it through, and then you can assess yourself and what you've done.
Now, I know we've touched a little bit about flexibility, but how important would you say flexibility is for this career?
Flexibility and patience are the very most important things that you practice. And I can't stress it enough, because, like I said, laws change that you have to abide by. Things change. Example, COVID-19. It came, y'all, it saw and it conquered. And now you have to switch your mindset as a teacher while being blamed as the teacher, right? Shame on y'all for not wanting to come to school. Da, da, da. Look, you don't know me, honey. You don't understand that I want to be there more than you want me there. And I can't. So that weighs heavily on us as educators, right? We don't like doing this. We ain't no Brady Bunch. We don't want to do this either. We want to touch our kids. I'm a hugger. I know you can probably tell. I want to hug everybody. So you have to be flexible. And then you have to be prepared to be blamed, even in your flexibility. Those are the hardest things in being a teacher. You're I'm not even getting paid enough to make decisions like this. I don't even make the decisions. I don't get paid enough to handle your scrutiny when I'm suffering too. Um, Not only do you have to be flexible, but you have to be patient and compassionate for those that you don't even know.
What's one of the most rewarding things about working in this industry?
Everything. Um, the aha moments that
Mhm.
your babies have, and then they find you on Facebook and be like, Mrs. Holmes, I remember when I was in the 11th grade and 20 years ago, honey. I'm just kidding. But you have everything is rewarding, but it depends on you, right? Do you have a growth mindset, or are you just out here complaining in these streets? So if you have a growth mindset, you will see everything as an opportunity for more growth. And it just really does ignite you as an educator.
What's one of the most challenging things about working in this industry?
Everything. I work in the urban schools. I've worked in suburban schools. I've worked in rural schools. And in every school, every child needs the one thing, love. The second thing, validation. And it is difficult to gain that rapport sometimes, especially with babies that don't look like you. Let's talk about it. When I was in a suburban and a rural area, I had a harder time convincing my scholars that I loved them, because we look completely different. Look at all this Afro time. Look at this chocolateness. We look completely different. And they had biases, they had stereotypes that they knew were a truth, and their parents had it too. But building that relationship is important, but it is challenging. And while you're doing it, you will be abused. They cuss at you, babies. They hit you sometimes, honey. And what can you do but sit there, take it, love them, and continue forward? So that is challenging. What is also challenging is being blamed for everything. I hate to say it, but we are, guys. We're blamed if we're doing it right. We're blamed if we're doing it kind of right. We're blamed if they think we're doing it wrong because we are in a public setting. So we are judged by popular opinion. And just because it's popular doesn't mean it's backed by fact. So you have to be ready for those things because they are challenging and they will weigh on you. And another thing that's very challenging, mental health. I don't think we talk about it enough. In this field, if you don't have a therapist, if you are not seeking someone outside of yourself to help you, honey, you're going to struggle. And it's a challenge to realize that. It's a challenge to realize, oh my God, I've just became an anxious person because I teach. And now I've been categorized as having an anxiety disorder. That's a thing that happens. And you have to be prepared for those challenges, but you can do it and you can make it.
What skills are most important to acquire, or what skills do employers look for?
That employers look for? They look for content understanding. They want to make sure that you understand the content well enough to educate the scholars that you are about to educate. They also look for punctuality and professionalism. They look to see if you are somebody of your word. They also look to see if you can engage with your scholars quickly, because you got to do it fast because they coming. So they look for that. They also look to see if you align with their vision or their mission. So do not be sad when you don't get a call back that wasn't meant for you in the first place.
How important is career development in college, like job shadowing, networking, and mentorships?
If you have done it like I've done it and you did it the traditional way, that's the traditional way, you will receive all the training that you think you need until you get up in that classroom. So for me, when I was in school a long time ago, when I was in school, I had to do uh, student teaching, and I had to do so in different classes, and it looked differently in each. So you will receive that training if you do it traditionally. If you go the route that my husband and others have gone with, like Teach for America or other things that are out there for you to acquire by your state. For here, it's like IFT. It's Indiana Fellows, the Teachers Fellows, so ITF, excuse me. They also have the opportunity for you to student teach and for you to job shadow throughout before you get started. But it is essential to this career. But because we know that it's essential, we already put it in the curriculum for you, honey. You can't get away from it.
What job search advice would you give to job seekers?
Job search.
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Call the principal yourself. Don't wait for the fact that, hey, I just applied to this through my state and I'm looking for the person to come. They don't know you. They're not looking for you. Ain't nobody checking for you when they don't know you. You have to be your own advocate. You are your billboard. And if they don't see this billboard, they don't know you exist. So after you hit that submit button to your application, get on the phone. Call your principal that you are seeking out and get to know them. That helps.
That's awesome. What resume tips would you give to prospective job applicants?
Resume, I would say make sure someone checks it. Put on there it's hard to figure out what great things you've done because you yourself are hardest on yourself. So you forget all the wonderful things you did. So ask a partner, ask a think partner, ask somebody that knows you. Ask your homie, ask your best friend, ask your baby mama, ask your girlfriend, ask your boo. They know you. They see the hard work that you've done. Ask them so that you can buffer that up because principals, I was an assistant principal before. We look for what you've done because we want to see that you've done something. Even if when you're still in school and let's say you don't have much experience, but you were out here in these streets working with people with children, put that on there. That's experience that you've gained, right? It's experience that not everyone else has. Put on there that you've worked with students that don't look like you. Definitely do that, because that talks about cultural competency. Put on there all the awards that you got in college, because that's cute. That's gloating. Make yourself look good in your resume and make sure someone looks at it before you submit.
What's the hiring process like for someone entering this career path?
The hiring process is simple. You apply, please call the administrator, and then they'll call you back whenever they're ready to sit down with you. They'll have an interview, and then they'll let you know in a couple days if they want you to come back and do a mock lesson for them, or to send a video of a mock lesson. Those are simple. It's just 5 minutes of your time. So that's usually the process, and then they get back with you in a few days after.
And my last question is, what tips would you like to provide students at Marshall University?
Guys, just go for it. Believe in yourself and know that your village will see you through. Know your worth and don't be afraid to speak up for educational inequity. That is so important, especially in the time that we live. I also encourage you, if you don't have friends that don't look like you, you're not going to make it in this field, baby. Because you don't just teach people that look like you teach people from all backgrounds. And you have to make sure that your information is culturally relevant so that they can engage and stay with you and they can see you're compassionate at first.
Well, thank you so much. Those were some wonderful, wonderful tips, and it was really great talking to you today. I wish we could make this session go on for way longer than what I'm allowed to.
Thank you, Miss McLeod.
Thank you for sharing your career with us at Marshall University, and it was so great to experience the day in the life of an educator. Thank you
It's
again.
my honor.
Thank you again for participating in this series, and have a great day.
You too.